Alright, welcome back. Papa Bako, Eddie Sembi Abeto, and Monte, so I could see and Semna or can say, we about Jemba Nasa Wutie and Semna or Kana, Obe say Yansa Semu, and Semna or Kana, so no crown Sem and all come. A DNT and America Sansom way. Say, you heard a free SHS, a idea MP before and at the buy. Enti John Dramani Mahama, Ednim said ye. A year MP before a CEO of free SHS. Enti obetemi aba any right and answer aba say free SHS no obe cancel because Ghana for ankasa and a ete amante so our more kase free SHS name what free SHS and amount for be able to me a whole lot and just a Ghana for a year a kind. Until there is time to come and NDC for to be use that against you or more HSA. This is what the people say they wanted, so let's do this for them. Until say more can say ya and a newspaper so and yet in control. Or more our evidence one until Ghana for the and someone started everywhere by the and
expensive and that they need to make some changes to free SHS. Now, what John Mahama is then going to come and say is that this is not our suggestion. This is the suggestion of the ordinary Ghanaian people. So we are going to work with the suggestions of the Ghanaian people. This is what the people of Ghana want. Remember that already the Conference of Heads of Schools have come out to say that, some people should be allowed to pay and that parents should ask their children to bring food to school. They are preparing the grounds. What then will come up is after the education conference, okay, this is what the people want, so let's do it that way. When you say, they'll say, we didn't say it. This is a newspaper publication. And because a lot of people are paying attention to appointment and all of this right now, we will not notice it. But that is the justification they are going to use. The economic whatever forum that they are trying to do is just another cinchi that they are going to do. At the end of the day, they'll come out with recommendations saying, for example, teacher training allowances must be cut off. Free SHS bill must be reduced. Subsidies, basically they'll be looking to cut down on social intervention programs aimed at helping the poor in society with the excuse that we cannot afford it anymore. People must bear their own burdens. And they're setting all of these traps to make sure that things come on. Afanya Marking, I think that he's doing really well. But we must all not lose sight of one thing. The principal aim of the NDC is to create an existential threat for the NPP. We have just lost an election, and we lost that election by a very big margin. Watch what is going on. They are trying to turn the supporting base of the party against the leadership of the party. They have demonized the ex-president, said all sorts of things about him. Every day, oral is coming out. They looted this, they looted that. Basically, what they are trying to do is, you, the supporters of the party, look at it. You are stupid. You are foolish. Your leaders were taking so much money. What did you get from it? If they succeed in demoralizing the base of the party is done. So now, they are every day, watch Kevin Taylor and the things that he's saying. Watch all the NDC communicators and the commentators and what they are trying to do. They are trying to demoralize it, create a division between the leadership and the base. What Afenyo Marking is doing is giving that fire back to the grassroots of the party that we are out, but we are not dead. We are still here. What I wish will happen is that more of these voices will rise up. A lot of our former ministers should not go back to bed and go and sleep. They need to target these. For example, they have now started this whole thing about a discussion on education. Where are our guys on education? I see that Vincent Assefa is there. He worked as the PRO for the Ministry of Education for a while. I see that Kwesi Kwarteng is around. The former minister is. All of those people should. At this stage, if the party can, these individuals should set up think tanks so that at every point in time, when the government, like what ASAP used to do, when the government comes out with the policy, you scrutinize the policy, list the good and the bad, and criticize it, and then you give your counter policy. Not everybody will understand that, but what we have is to occupy the discussion space. Go with them, boot for boot. Do not allow them to lead that space. As for votes in parliament, we are never going to be able to do anything when it comes to the actual decision making because they have the numbers. But what we have to do is occupy the communication space. Yes, the radio and TV, we may not have that much of a voice because a lot of the hosts will be against us because they will be paid and all of that. If we can get our own platforms, like what you are doing, let's have other people do it in various ways. That's why I'm very happy and I always try to join this program. DC is saying that they want to redo it. So that's another discussion altogether. We need to know what are the terms of reference for this privatization, what procedure are they going to employ in making this privatization, among others, particularly as a result of the lessons that we have learned from previous. How are they going to ensure that it will be better? The main thing that all of us need to understand is that the privatization of of ECG, for example, became an issue because there were so many challenges with the power sector. For example, these technical losses and everything that we're talking about. As usual, everybody knows that anything that belongs to the government is always a problem, how they manage it and all of that. When it went into the private sector, there were changes that were made that we began to see improvements. But now that it has come back into the government hands, even though it is in government hands, some of the changes that were done in the private sector are still being implemented. So we are relatively better off. But as it stands now, there is no privatization. The NDC says they will bring privatization. Let's see how and what they will do about it. Now, with the losses, actually, we've improved the losses by a lot. When we came into power, I think it was around 45%. Yes, I'm not sure of the figure, but it was if my memory serves me right, it was around 45% or so. We have gradually worked to make sure that we improve it. There's a discussion about bringing VRA and BUI power together so that we can keep all of them as the state entities, and all of those things were part of the proposal that was being worked on by the MPP government before this NDC government came into being. If you look at BUI, for example, we have constructed solar solar on the dam. All of these things were part of the processes of improving efficiency. We also forced Gridco to make some changes and rehabilitation so that the lines, because for example, when we came into power, some of the lines that were bringing power from Akosombo to Accra were over 50 years old. Now, 50 years, the technology that was available 50 years ago is not as efficient as the technology that could be available now. And even now, when you come to the United States of America, for example, power transmission lines, they have sensors at various points so that when losses are happening, the sensors will trigger and give information to people who are sitting in the control room that there's loss happening at this point because maybe two wires are touching or something is happening, and then they can correct it efficiently. So we need to improve upon the technology that is within that sector. When it comes to distribution in Ghana, the major challenge, electricity theft, these things of political meters, all of those things, we can address them, but it will take money and it will take a lot of effort. The MPP government just basically looked at it and factored the losses that we were making into the price build up and discounted it. So that, for example, if we knew that, for example, the losses are 35%, we'll factor that loss of 35% into the price build up, but discount it. Again, the managers at ECG were given key performance indicators, so that if you are not meeting those KPIs, for example, losses in your district. So there was a metering system that came to each of the districts. So we can tell that this district, within this month, we supplied you with a total of 100,000 cedis worth of electricity. Out of the 100,000 cedis worth of electricity, you've only been able to account for 50% of it, whilst we asked you to ensure that your collections were at 65%. So at that point, do we change the manager? Those things were being done. Remember that Samuel Dubik Mahama at a point was going to various state agencies, harassing them, and it is because the metering system was improved. They also brought about change. You remember the app that was brought in terms of collection, so that when you buy all that money, was an improvement in collection. So a lot of technology was brought to ensure that we made what savings that we could, so we could keep the lights on for longer periods. Again, on the supply end of it, I remember that the two ministers during my time, they engaged, for example, the Nigerians, WAPCO. We tried to pay off their debt as much as possible, so they were more willing to give us gas, which ensured that fuel shortages was not an issue and we could generate power. Also, we added more fuel efficient plants. So if you look at AXA, for example, I think that AXA is the most fuel efficient plant that Ghana has now. That was brought in under the MPP administration, and the cost was such that it was no longer an emergency power plant, but a normalized power plant. So the charges were lower. And because of that, we could free up more money to put in other sectors. If you go to Takrady, for example, we have TICO, we have the T2. T2 was brought under Rawlings and it has never functioned, even though we've had to pay for it.